Is your vehicle stopping like it should? Does it squeal or grind when you brake? Don't miss out on summer brake deals at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
Welcome to episode 158 of the Life in Ruins podcast, where we investigate the careers of those living a life in ruins. I'm your host, Connor John, and I'm joined by my co-host, David Howe. For this week's episode, we are joined by Joshua Herrin. Josh is a military veteran who served in the United States Army. He then attended Georgia Southern University for his undergraduate studies and later earned his master's there as well. Josh is not only knowledgeable about British, colonial, and southeastern archaeology, but also is the current laboratory manager of the Augusta Veterans Curation Program, accepting the job after David's departure.
Yeah, man, it's been a minute. I guess we were just saying in the chat, I guess since you took my job. Well, not took my job. I handed you, I don't know what the word is, pass the torch. There you go. I also need to bring up really quickly, you're the first person I've seen with a Majora's Mask poster in the background, so automatic points.
So, David, how long were you in Augusta at the program?
I started in May 2018, April 2018, and then left in I remember Halloween 2021. So I took the brunt of COVID living alone in Augusta, and it was not. I'm where I am now because of that. Yeah, it was not a good time down there for me.
Do you enjoy, Josh, not living in Augusta?
Augusta, for all its charms, is just kind of a gross place.
It's hot. It smells, and I would describe it as it has every chain restaurant you could want besides In-N-Out, but there's nothing else there. There's just nothing to do. I don't know. But anyway, we're really selling Augusta. So where exactly do you live? And are you a Georgia boy?
I live in a tiny little town called Social Circle.
Wow.
It's right below Covington, Georgia, which is about 30 minutes from Atlanta.
That sounds like Elon Musk's new thing.
Oh, God.
His new social media output.
Hi, guys. I'm in Social Circle, Georgia.
So did you grow up in Georgia, Josh?
Yep. I've been here my whole life. I don't know why. I'm not built for the heat. I hate it. I live in one of the hottest places in the U.S. So I grew up in a little town called Jessup. And it's everything you imagine a small town in Georgia would be. Spent most of my time at my grandfather's in an even smaller town called Oliver, which has a total population of about 250.
Wow.
Yeah.
In Georgia. So in Georgia, so I guess we talk about Western archaeology a lot here. So out west, sites just appear on the surface. They were a Paleo-Indian dropped it there. It's still there.
Yeah. Out
east, though, did you get to find a lot of stuff as a kid in your yard? Or?
We lived on such a big farm, and it was something like 200 acres or something like that.
Wow.
Never found a single artifact, but it was likely because I never thought, hey, I'll find some artifacts here.
Gotcha.
So, looking back, I'm thinking, my God, I was probably surrounded.
Yeah, just take a few STPs and find some. What kind of led you? Well, you joined the military eventually, but what got you into archaeology as a kid?
As much as I've learned differently about archaeological ethics, it was, in fact, Dr. Jones himself that got me into archaeology.
Nothing wrong with that, dude.
I thought I'm going to be punching Nazis and wooing women and finding treasure, but nope.
Yeah, it's quite the opposite.
Yeah.
Which one was your favorite?
I'm an outlier. My favorite's Temple.
That's fun.
I always get people tell me theirs is either Ark or Crusade, but I like Temple. I think it's because it was the first one I saw.
Yeah, it's just different. Yeah. Are you a Lost World person versus Jurassic Park 1 or 3 then?
Oh, wow. So I definitely perpetuate the dino stereotypes that we get as archaeologists because I love dinosaurs. I saw Jurassic Park when it came out in theaters. I'm actually drinking water out of my, what's the most recent one? The Jurassic World one?
We don't talk about those.
Jurassic Kingdom or something?
Well, I'm drinking out of my commemorative cup, and I also have the commemorative popcorn bucket because I went and saw it when it first came out. The first one and the last one.
Hell yeah.
I think they did what they could with the latter ones, but, there's something about the first one that just seeing it when it first came out, it was pure magic. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Wait, I didn't realize. Yeah, the first one came out in 90?
94, I believe.
94. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I was I was a fetus.
Yeah, I was in there watching it with my grandma and grandpa, and I had to come out during the raptor scene, but I bucked up and went back in and made it through.
I used to be scared of the Stegosaurus, like when my neighbors were watching it, and like when it was sick laying on the ground. Like
that's a Triceratops.
Triceratops, right?
Sorry, I didn't mean to do the stereotype again.
By all means.
Please correct this man.
I remember hiding under a blanket and I threw up, and like I was just scared. Not one single adult in my life as a child was like, "Why does he throw up so much? Maybe he needs some anxiety medicine." I don't know, but yeah. Like I just
sure wasn't just you just farted underneath there or you smelled it?
Nah, but
just okay.
No, you're good.
No, it's like I'm a huge fan of the second one. I don't know. That's a little bit of an outlier.
That is.
It's wild. But I'm glad you are another person who perpetuates the stereotypes of archaeologists and dinosaurs, because I'm also the same way. Like I was a paleontologist first, and then I adopted archaeology as a secondary career.
Yeah, we all kind of get into that. So yeah, did you go to college first? You joined the military first? I can't remember.
So there's a running joke in our department at Georgia Southern. Well, it's not my department anymore, but there's a running joke in the anthro department that I've been there longer than most of the professors.
Oh,
one of my mentors, Dr. Heidi Altman, we often make the joke when we both first started there, we had brown hair, and now we both have gray hair. My mentor, Dr. Wood, I've been there for about 6 years longer than him. I started in 2006, straight out of high school. I was immediately introduced to the gym and met a bunch of bouncers, and they were like, "Hey, dude, come bounce," which led to free drinks at the bars, which led to academic probation, which led to having to stay out for 3 years to get all my grades reset, which led to me being broke and saying, "You know what? Screw it. I'll join the Army. They pay." So it was definitely not out of, it's very.
I do love that the gym was the gateway drug.
Oh, absolutely. Once I discovered that you can be a huge human, I was like, oh yeah. And then, you get the bars in Statesboro were such a cult. We were all the bouncers and bartenders and servers were such a group of like, there is one thing to do and one thing only, and it's just get trashed. So it definitely led to my academic downfall early on.
I could definitely see you being a bouncer, because when I first met you, I was definitely shocked at how just like large you are. like in terms of height, I should say. Like
that's what Nate
like,
all the time is like, dude, he's just a large human.
You could crush me. Yeah. I was like, damn.
I'm such a gentle giant, but my face just makes me look like an axe murderer.
Well, yeah, you got people can't see it right now, but you got the big long beard, and then do you still have the mohawk ponytail thing?
No, I went back. It was just the Georgia summer. I don't know how I thought I was going to survive with that hair.
No, yeah, I couldn't do it either.
Yeah.
Did you initially go in for history, anthropology, something like that, or did you?
I did not know that anthropology led to archaeology. In fact, I didn't even know anthropology existed. So for my first semester, I was a history major, and then I discovered, hey, anthropology is where I need to be. So I quickly switched over. I did this letters to a pen pal thing. It pairs STEM professionals with kids in underserved communities. And you just kind of talk to them and basically like, hey, you can do STEM too. Mm-hmm. And we got to talking about that. Me and Nate were trying to answer the question of like, what was hard in your college career? And I was like, I had no direction. I had no idea what anthropology was. They don't prepare you for it in high school. They don't even tell you that it exists.
Yeah, it's, I didn't know it existed. I think I knew, like I'd heard of anthropology in terms of like evolution, but I didn't think about it being like an archaeology kind of thing,
Yeah, and I think it's like statewide or United States wide. Like it's not a taught class or something that's mentioned. I mean, you do your psychologies, you do even sociology probably in some locations, but anthropology is like really drastically underrepresented in high school. It's kind of a wild.
Listen, when I was in 8th grade, we took Georgia history, and I can just answer your question here. It was called the War of Northern Aggression. So that I was not getting any intro to anthropology in my hometown.
Honestly, if they like made anthropology like a high school class, there would be no GOP. Like that's a firm belief of mine.
I agree. I think it should be required.
Class.
Yeah.
Yeah. I shouldn't say GOP, but like the extremes of it.
Yeah, I think that the there's certain aspects that wouldn't be around anymore. Yeah, when you're exposed to just like the diversity of humans, it's hard to be really racist and terrible to other people.
Yeah, I guess debatably, but anyway. So the Army, and what exactly did you do?
I was a 13 Bravo cannon crew member. I didn't mean to be one. I went in with a buddy. The first of the 118th, it was in Savannah when I got into it. It's a kind of a famous guard unit, Hickory's howitzers. I took the ASVAB, and then when I told them I wanted artillery, they were like, really? Because you don't have to be real smart. You just got to be strong. Mm-hmm. I should have said no, not artillery. He was like, you don't want MI or something like that, military intelligence? But we went into artillery because we had a bunch of friends in that unit. So, whatever, we'll get through these 6 years and be done. It was fun. It was type 2 fun. I'll say that for sure. It was fun later. It's fun after I was done with it.
Fun. Huh.
Yeah.
I've never heard that. That's funny.
Well, it may be made up because Nate told me about it. Type 1 fun is apparently you're having fun while you're doing it. Mm-hmm. But type 2 fun is you look back and you're like, yeah, that was fun. It was miserable while I was doing it, but yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
It's like the reminiscing about it is the good part.
Yeah.
So you go away, do your 6 years, come back and decided that anthropology, history was kind of what you wanted to continue to study?
Well, so the good thing about the Army Guard is, you work a civilian life and a military life. So I was able to work civilian jobs, and without education, my grandpa was a big construction guy. So I worked construction. I did pipe fitting. I did farm work. I did corrections. And I just was like, man, this is miserable. I have to buckle down and get this stuff done so I can be an archaeologist. I don't want to be one of those guys that had big dreams and now I'm a SoundCloud rapper.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm there. So it's I get it.
Yeah, it's amazing what like a little hard labor and like real world jobs will like put into you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was it like doing? I mean, obviously you just kind of explained it, but like balancing both sounds like hell to me.
It's one of the reasons that I am so passionate about the VCP is it was hell. Most guard units are pretty standard, two days a month, 2 weeks during the summer. The 118th was not standard. The 118th was all about training. They're a sister unit to the 3rd ID in Fort Stewart, which has a ridiculous deployment rate. So it was more like 3 days a month, 60 days during the summer. So there's no way to balance the civilian life. Yeah, legally, civilian employers have to keep your job and this and that. But we all know they can find a way to fire you. So, It's just how capitalism works. They'll find a way to fire you. So that's one of the reasons I was like, man, this program's important. I gotta be a part of it.
The VCP?
Yeah, the VCP.
Yeah, cool. How'd you find it, by the way?
It was actually my mentor, Dr. Jared Wood at Georgia Southern, was like, man, I think it's almost like this program was made for you to be a part of because, veterans get a pretty crappy end of the stick. And if I could combine archaeology and my passion for helping other veterans, like, why not? You're going to pay me to do that? Sweet.
Yeah, it definitely, as an anthropologist, shocked me at that job. Not only veterans are just very hardworking and like drilled people, but just how like the Army's or the Navy, Air Force too, or Marines are just like, bye. And then they have no idea what to do. And yeah, I was like, wow, I never thought about that.
Yeah, the comment, I feel like my knowledge was that they would treat you well and get you situated into civilian life, but it doesn't seem like that's something that's ever done. I mean,
no.
Shit.
Yeah. It's like, hey, did you turn in all your gear? Okay, see you. Hope you don't die in the streets.
Jesus.
It's pretty bad.
And some people get disability and stuff, and then you get your, do you get a pension, or is that only if you're a captain?
It's only if you retire.
Oh, okay.
Which is super hard in the Guard because in the regular Army, you just do your 20 years. But in the Guard, you have to do a certain number of years and milestones to equal up to a certain amount of points. So it may be 23, 24 years when you actually retire.
Gotcha. Okay.
And even then, it's not like the VA is just terrible to deal with. So,
as I experienced. Yeah.
I think on that cheery note, we're going to end this segment, and we will be right back talking with Josh Herrin.
Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One with pico and creamy chipotle ranch, and the other with bacon and avocado ranch. Chicken expert since 1990. Taco expert since now. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.
What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit a million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
Welcome back to episode 158 of a Life in Ruins podcast. We're here with Josh Herrin. And last time we just kind of talked about the military and job, but I'd love to know, when you got to Georgia Southern, what was your undergrad experience like, and research wise, and what kind of stuff were you doing?
So when I finally, got my collective crap together, I volunteered in the lab quite a bit, and it led me to connect with who I consider to be my mentor now, Dr. Jared Wood. He's an archaeologist at Georgia Southern. And I just kind of tried to, stick to him like glue, because I could he's one of those guys that just knows everything. Like he's so smart that he, I guess, got bored in archaeology and co-authored a paper with a biologist at Georgia Southern about an invasive gecko species.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? Like he's one of those, he just knows literally everything there is to know. I was lucky enough to be able to work under him and learn under him and the other greats at Georgia Southern. Really, really dedicated staff there, which is awesome to see. They truly care about this. It's a small department. There's more students, but it's a small department, and they're able to individually get with the students and, really get to know them. I ended up doing the field school on the site that actually ended up being my thesis site. And me, Dr. Wood, and another student, his name was Val, we volunteered and put in the research on some of the stuff and ended up being able to co-author a paper with Dr. Wood on it and present it at the Georgia Archaeological Society. Mm-hmm. And being a non-traditional student, when I finally graduated like 14 years later, I went to Dr. Wood and the faculty, and I was just like, hey, I own a house here. I'm in my 30s, just got divorced. I think it would be too hard to go somewhere else for grad school. Would you guys let me come here? Turns out, as much as I liked him and, was trying to learn from him, I had taken like one of Dr. Wood's courses. So it worked out to where I was like, not relearning the same stuff, which is, why they want you to go to their schools. So I was lucky enough to get to do that and start grad school there at Georgia Southern.
Very cool. Okay, Josh, what site did you do your field school on? So
this was a site, it was private land in Scriven County, Georgia, something like 600 acres. The landowner was an acquaintance of Dr. Wood's that he'd spoken to over the years and wanted the land to revert into, I forget what it's called, like a managed area by the DNR or something, where it wouldn't be chopped up and sold. There's several possible occupation sites on the land. So, it's right near a confluence of streams. I'm not going to go into super deep detail since it is private land, but it's a really great site, and there's prehistoric and historic components.
Oh, that's awesome. Did you guys focus on both of them, or did you? Well,
initially I don't know what they've done so far, after I've left, but it was the historic component was what was really focused.
What's it like digging like a mixed context kind of site like that?
I'll tell you this. I have enough chert to do 8 or 9 theses on that site.
Oh, shit.
So,
wow.
And maybe like a total of like 200 historic artifacts. So pretty challenging.
Yeah. Damn.
Did you do your thesis specifically on the historics, or did you do some other sort of research? Or
so I was mainly focused on trying to prove Stan South wrong, which is a lofty goal. I won't say prove him wrong.
Contest his views.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Stan South himself said, "My sample size is small. Please go out and try to prove me wrong. We need more sites to make my theories correct." And I don't know if it's fortunately or unfortunately, I did everything but the metal detection. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm going to prove Stan South wrong. This isn't even close to any of his site types. Did the metal detection. It fits squarely in the frontier pattern. So stand south wins again.
So for those who are not like familiar with that, what is stand south and what kind of theory does he have that you're kind of hoping to contest? Or
stand south was he focused primarily on colonial site formation processes, mainly with the use of refuse disposal. He got it so down pat. Oh my God, I can't believe you asked me this. If Dr. Wood listens to this podcast and I'm wrong, I'll never hear the end of it. But he mainly focused on the refuse disposal. He was able to come up with the Brunswick pattern, which was basically saying, hey, this is a British colonial site based on the refuse disposal. He could even tell you where the front and back doors of a building were based on the refuse disposal. He focused a lot on ceramics, getting the mean ceramic date, which is annoying because I initially thought that archaeology had no math. I'm really bad at math. Turns out it's like all math.
Yeah, there's a lot of it.
fuck.
So I was bamboozled from the get-go. But yeah, basically it fell into two site types, the Carolina pattern, which was a more domestic site, and the frontier pattern. And he did this through his artifact groups and the percentages that were present in the refuse disposal. So the Carolina pattern focused a lot more on like kitchen stuff and ceramics, and the frontier pattern would focus more on things like nails and outdoorsy, I'm using finger quotes here, kind of stuff.
So, is this an absence of like any sort of structure or anything like that? This is just like focusing squarely on where people threw all their stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there are often structures, but there were zero structures where I was, and I was still able to fit it squarely into the frontier pattern, but just based on the refuse disposal. I mean, that may have changed with further work done out of there, but when I stopped, that's what my data showed me.
So we don't talk about historic archaeology much on here, just because we haven't done a ton of it. Do you?
Yeah, go off.
What would you tell someone who was wanting to study historic archaeology? Like, how would you get them excited about this?
So I didn't even know that I wanted to do historic archaeology. Whenever we were doing this paper as an undergrad, I initially was like, hey, I want to do the prehistoric stuff. And Dr. Will was like, nah, big dog, you're going to do the historic stuff. So turns out I loved it. The ceramics are wild. I have a favorite ceramic. It's mocha ware. Mocha ware is it's characterized by its brown dendritic patterns. Those patterns come from a mixture of urine and tobacco juice.
Oh.
So, yeah. So, I wonder who thought, I'm going to pee on this and spit on it and see what happens and then mass market it. But there's a piece in a collection at the Augusta lab, David, that is a true mocha ware. And I'll pass it around, kind of talk about it and be like, hey guys, guess how that's made? It's made with pee-pee. And they're all like, I touched it.
Yeah.
The thing I would say is, there's a lot of what Dr. McNutt, another one of my mentors, calls sexy archaeology. What
a sentence.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there. So, but yeah, it's stuff like lead balls, lead shot. I didn't find any, but muskets, pistols, stuff like that. Dr. McNutt is a conflict archaeologist, which is some of the most awesome historic archaeology ever.
Oh, my apologies.
Yeah, he did his doctorate at Glasgow University, or is it university in the UK? I don't know. But yeah, between him, Dr. Wood, and Doctors Altman and Compton, I had a pretty sweet team of mentors at Georgia Southern. Don't get me wrong, I was beaten down and broken, but I would be the archaeologist I am without them. So
yeah, as I feel
type 2 fun.
Yeah, as is tradition with grad school and all that stuff.
Yeah,
that's cool to be exposed to that, because I think what I think of in terms of historic archaeology is kind of these random can scatters, maybe later stuff, but there are pieces of information and really cool things you can kind of study and things you can trace back to certain manufacturers, or talk about Curation with getting peed on and spit on. That stuff is super interesting.
Yeah.
I was fascinated when I took a historic archaeology class that you can tell the period of time based on how they laid the bricks. I was like, wow, This is really something I'm getting tested on right now, but cool. And it's kind of fascinating how they could, once you have documents, you can do all that.
Yeah, documentary evidence definitely is a great part of historical archaeology. It makes things a lot easier.
Yeah. Can you elaborate on what that's like, actually? Because besides archives, I have from the VCP, I have no like experience with like historic documents doing archaeology.
So there are things called, plat maps that are basically like, I may think, hey, there's a site here. There's no structures. Nobody knows about it or whatever. And I go check in the county's, think like the tax office or something. And here's a plat map showing a building that was built in 1712. Well, not in Georgia, 1757. And now I can go look and be like, hey, I have this plat map. Oh, it shows a giant oak. Look, there's a giant oak. Now I have a much better concept of where I'm probably going to start working. The Georgia, what is it? I've purged a lot of thesis stuff out of my head.
Rightfully so.
Same.
There's a whole book, like 26 volumes of letters from the trustees of the Georgia colony, back to England to random officials and stuff that trace orders for millstones and supplies and, hey, we're going to build a town here and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's very helpful.
That's super cool. We don't get like, at least out here in the West, like we do a lot with plat maps in terms of like mining and GLOs and stuff like that. But that documentary evidence, those letters and stuff, is that like really interesting to read and kind of see what people are talking about in their day-to-day lives?
It is very interesting. And I just remembered it. It's the Colonial Records of Georgia, and it's available online to read for anybody who's interested in it. Georgia had a short and tumultuous life as a colony before, freedom with all caps. So it's pretty cool to read what was happening in that short period.
Georgia, was it a penal colony? I hear that a lot, but I never remember if it was. Okay.
So that's an urban myth. I'm going to try to stay out of the weeds because I could talk about this for hours.
Do it.
Oglethorpe wanted a colony that was different from the Carolina plantation style economy where all the wealth was concentrated in plantation owners. He wanted a colony
progressive
colony. Slavery was outlawed in Georgia initially. Slavery was not legal in Georgia until 1751. That's when Georgia went from a trustee colony to a royal colony. And they were like, hey, man, South Carolina and North Carolina are just making tons of money. We got to do something else, bro.
Yeah.
So it was initially Oglethorpe actually caused it himself by defeating the Spanish at the Battle of Bloody Marsh, because it ended up taking away the threat that if they brought in slaves, they would defect to the Spanish for freedom and fight against Georgia. So Oglethorpe accidentally screwed himself. He played himself.
Was Florida in Spanish hands at that point? Is that why it was kind of on the edge of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
St. Augustine's like right south of Georgia, pretty much.
Yep. It's only a couple hours from where I grew up.
Yeah.
It was a typical poor people vacation spot when I was a poor kid. So I've been to St. Augustine a few times. Yeah.
My parents just visited it. My dad was telling me he said it was very disappointing, like the archaeology there, because it was just all for kids.
Yeah.
But if anyone works at St. Augustine that's listening to this podcast, I'm sorry, I guess. But he also was telling me because when the Spanish got here, it was like they had just kicked the Muslims out of Spain. So it was like medieval architecture. And he was saying that the St. Augustine is technically like the oldest medieval architecture in the Americas because it is the only medieval architecture, like those kinds of forts. And I was like, that is interesting. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it was like mid 16th century when St. Augustine was founded, so it's pretty old.
Yeah,
that's another thing people don't think about historical archaeology is how old some of the stuff truly is in the U.S.
Yeah. Okay, so after the war, what kind of went on in Georgia, like the Revolutionary War? Just plantation economy?
It gravitated that way. One of the big things in the South was timber.
Okay.
There were many examples of tall, straight, huge timber in the colonial records of Georgia, and it was sent back to Britain initially as, ship stuff. Mm-hmm. My expertise, and I'm using finger quotes at expertise, kind of ends at the Revolution. So,
gotcha. Okay.
We just went wild, I think. There was a lot of whiskey.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Georgia is pretty forested for sure. I was surprised by that when I got there.
Oh, me too. When I visited you out there, I was like, what? I thought it was just
farms.
Plantations and no sort of topography or anything, but where
It's
you're
like a pine jungle.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Pine Barrens. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Augusta is wild, and you're right near South Carolina and all that stuff. So it's cool. I mean, it's a really cool landscape. Would recommend. I wouldn't recommend living there, but visiting.
Yeah.
Especially
we got a lot of stuff like, we got the coast, we got the coastal plain, we got the Piedmont area where there's Nate forced me to climb a mountain in North Georgia a couple weekends ago. It was pretty miserable. So there's the Appalachian Trail starts here. It's we got a little bit of everything in Georgia.
The beaches are pretty too. Yeah.
Yeah. But everywhere it's hot.
Yeah.
So
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Wasn't like almost like every film filmed in Georgia, or there's like a large majority of films?
There's a huge film industry in Georgia and Atlanta. Forrest Gump was filmed in Savannah, or parts of it was filmed in Savannah. My friend that I worked with in the bars back in the day, his name's Bo Turpin. He works in I don't know, what do you call it, Atlanta Wood? But
okay.
Anyway, he does films. So
cool, because I know most of the Marvel green screen stuff is done in Georgia or Atlanta. I thought that was neat. Yeah. Well, anyway, we definitely want to ask you about your thesis and your master's work and then how you got to the VCP. So let's wrap this up and we'll come back in the next segment.
Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One with pico and creamy chipotle ranch, and the other with bacon and avocado ranch. Chicken expert since 1990. Taco expert since now. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.
Welcome back to episode 158 of Life in Ruins podcast. I'm here with Josh Herrin and Connor Johnen. I want to ask you about your thesis. To call back to when I said you were a very imposing human, you, in the very first day of working with you, established with me that you were a Norse pagan or practicing one. And I was like, wow, that makes sense. And I was like, wait, are you Norse? And you said, no, Irish. that was really funny. But you also... I can't remember if you were a priest or you had something blessed by a priest and you sent it to me, that wolf totem thing.
I didn't. It wasn't blessed, but it was, a big thing in paganism is gift giving. So, wolf totem, your work with dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I will not ever profess to be an expert in this at all. I'm just wading into these waters. I think it's one of those things where when it thunders, I don't believe that that's Thor beating his hammer on something. I just like the way that Odin goes about teaching stuff. It's kind of like all the stuff Jesus said in the Bible. And it's good stuff, but it doesn't really get used.
Yeah.
So, it's pretty cool. The unfortunate part is all the white supremacists took our symbols. Yeah. So I can't get any tattoos. I want to get them. I want to get a Mjolnir tattoo, but obviously I can't because it just wouldn't look good.
Yeah. Not a good look.
I actually have a friend from Georgia Southern, Michael Putnam, that I don't know. I just kind of wait. How's that one funny?
I would think like a friend that introduced you to Norse paganism would be like,
oh yeah,
or something. Glad.
Mjolnir.
He was in the anthropology department as well. He's a graduate of Georgia Southern, and I just kind of saw his stuff on Facebook, and I was like, hey man, this looks really cool. It seems like a really inclusive, really positive thing. And I just kind of got into it, and he took me under his wing, and here I am, beard later.
Yeah, that's cool. I don't think I've ever met one in person. So I've told people that now. Like I know a guy.
Do you do what kind of practices is part of that?
A lot of pagan festivals like Astara. I'm big on Lunasa, which is it's based on an Irish deity, Lu. He's kind of an all around badass. I learned bread baking, which is a big thing. I'm like that annoying hippie uncle that gives handmade gifts all the time now, because I give handmade gifts all the time now.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's just
I mean that's better than a gift card.
Yeah, it's
better than pulling up in a longboat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a lot of I guess I'd classify it as like down to earth stuff. Just
sure.
It's such an accepting world that I really enjoy it. And the lessons aren't even crazy. Like I bought, I can't remember the name of it. It's basically like the teachings of Odin, and it's not even crazy stuff. It's like, hey man, go out and have a few beers, just don't get trashed and throw up on yourself. Yeah, hey, sure, go out and fight, but maybe don't murder people that don't need murdering.
Yeah.
It's just really simple down to earth.
I could get
stuff.
behind that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could get behind that. You know, it's not like it's not like other religions where there's very specific things. Yeah, it's like, hey, maybe just be a good human sometimes. And
I think it's the Havamal is what it's called, I think.
Do you, I mean, obviously I'm being insensitive by laughing about some things, but like, do you find like, wouldn't say prejudice, or like, do you find any people that are like, just kind of scoff at it kind of thing?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
because like, I'm assuming because with Vikings and all that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You know, even my aunt, she's like, you know, I love her to death. She's like a hardcore Southern Baptist. So, you know, I don't get how people look at one, and I'm using religion very loosely. It's more of like a lifestyle. But which one? Neither one of them are crazier than the other. You know, they're all pretty crazy.
That's your anthropology talking there, bro.
Yeah.
I love that you're like 6'5", massive beard. You're a Norse pagan and you're from Georgia, and you say "gosh." I love it.
I'm telling you, man, I'm like the nicest dude ever. And one of the things from, I don't think last session. No, it was last session. It was like, he's kind of unapproachable. And I was like, dude, I can't turn off this asshole face. Like, it's just natural. I'm really, really nice.
It's funny you say that too, because a lot of the employees I had, like, because you can't hang out with them like when they're employees, but after I would get a beer with them and stuff when they graduated. And like one girl was like, you just seemed so unapproachable because you were so busy. And I was like, I was absolutely not busy. I was writing Instagram posts on my computer, and I felt bad that I was taking government money to do this. Like, you could have come up and talked. She's like, you seem so like smart and like intimidating. And I was like, I was literally probably looking up Zelda theories.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. It was a fun gig. I learned a lot, and it was very, I'm successful now. I put that in quotes, like you've been doing, because of that job, I would say. So that's good.
Can you guys both like kind of talk about the highs and lows of something like this? Because it's not a straightforward archaeology or anthropology job. Like you have to have a skill set that is not inherently taught to you, like a people skill set that I don't think is taught to everyone.
I was a therapist, dude. For like,
I took the same thing that David did. I took the mental health first aid thing.
Oh yeah, you did too? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah,
I'm pretty much just David now.
Yeah. it shocks me, and I'm like, I'm sure you know this too. Like, especially if they've seen some stuff on deployments and things, like the mental health system when you're out of the Army is like even harder to figure out, I'd imagine. Mm-hmm. So like, I would just be like, dude, I think about that shit all the time. Like, I don't own a gun. Like, it'd be bad if I did, kind of thing. And they're like, oh, me too. And then we would talk and like, yeah, like that was pretty dark. Sorry. But you know what I mean? That was an extreme. But
the stigma of mental health is still there. I mean, you know, the initial part of the war, you know, there was a big stigma about PTSD. Nobody wanted anyone to know they had PTSD, no mental health problems, because you got characterized as this crazy, violent war fighter, you know. So that still persists, 20 plus years later. We actually have had techs be like, I refuse to get a PTSD diagnosis, which is like 50% at the VA. That's like 50%. That's a lot of money. And they've been like, I refuse to get it because I don't want it to affect jobs in the future. I don't want people to think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
I think it's no secret for a lot of people, but especially with me, I have a big problem with how our country treats veterans.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I'm not one myself, but from what I saw there, I was like, oof. Yeah.
Do you think this program is like a good example of a way that the country is teaching people and giving people jobs and whatnot?
I do. I also think, particularly every lab is great, but I know particularly in Augusta, we go out of our way to make it a comfortable environment.
Yeah. Like we were the hipster lab.
Yeah, 100%. I have been, in the last few years, I've taken charge of my own mental health, and I try to be very vocal about it. Like, hey, man, I have debilitating panic attacks. I have, I probably checked the door to see if it was locked 18 times before I left the house today.
Yeah.
Talk to me, man. Talk to me. Don't let it eat you up. So it's a little bit of a drain on your own mental health, but I think it's worth it. Yeah.
And I don't mean to talk for you, but just all the stuff that people go through and things. And like, I would say the hard part too, and you might experience this as well, is like, I can talk to a guy like me and you, like a vet like that, like a Marine that was my age. I could easily level with him. But when he came in and said, like, I need help finding a job, I was like, all right, dog, let's do this. But when it's a mother of 3 and she's like 45, like, I had no idea how to like help. Like, it was just a new thing I had to like deal with, because like I've never had kids. Like, I have never had a 401k. So I do now, but not a lot of it, how to help them. And it was part of my job to do that. And it was something I had to learn. But what was really unique, and the state archaeologist of Wyoming told me this too, he was like, you're the first person I know that's like left grad school, not gotten a PhD and not gone into CRM, but got a job doing anthropology. And like, that hit me. And I was like, right, because I'm an anthropologist at this job, and you have to play the role of, like, I was like, shit, I'm my professor. Like, I'm the guy at the desk that they come talk to. And like, that hit me one day. And then also like with that mother of 3, like, okay, I'm an anthropologist. Here's the patterns I've seen of the veterans that come in. Here's how the culture works in Augusta. Like, here's how I can help you based on what I know, like empirically.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have that experience there too or not, but.
Oh yeah. There's been many times, veterans are talking to me and they feel so down about not being farther. And I'm like, man, I have these exact same thoughts. Like, you're in a great position here. We're here to help and stuff, but just know, like, everyone around you is thinking, man, I'm not far enough. Man, I'm not doing good enough. Man, this sucks.
Yeah.
It's been, how do I say? It's been great to use my own poor experiences as a veteran to help other veterans. So at least those poor experiences are good for something.
Yeah. Well, that's good, man. And then you're the artifacts manager too. So I'm sure you're dealing with my aftermath of Tougaloo. You had a hiccup the other day, I remember, but I don't know if we could talk about that one.
It was a good one.
We'll tell Connor after the show.
Yeah.
Did David write something? I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
he did.
Okay.
How did you know that?
I've already, Chris Rowe is a good friend of ours, and I think we had this conversation before. How is working for Chris? Is Chris a decent?
So Chris has moved into an admin position where I don't work directly for him, but Chris is one of the best people I've ever worked with. So, I don't think I've ever seen Chris have a bad day.
It's bizarre.
It's bizarre.
Like, I've never met a human like that.
Yeah, it'll be like he could just get his leg like taken off by a train and he'd be like, gosh darn it, you guys want to get tacos? It's like he's just never had a bad day.
That's Chris.
Yeah, shout out Chris Rowe. You're a fantastic human. As we're like kind of winding down, I did want to ask you.
Oh, thesis, right?
No, I was going to ask him like, did you have any advice for either veterans or non-traditional students who want to get into archaeology? Do you have any tips, tricks, dance moves?
So for non-traditional students, I know it sucks and it seems like you're too old or you're never going to finish it, but you definitely can. When I was in grad school, there was a dude that was like 75 finishing his master's. So it's never too late. Don't give up on your dreams just because it seems hard, because, here I am, Mom, I made it. But for veterans, one of the good things that comes out of being a veteran, there's a lot of crappy stuff that comes out of being a veteran, but one of the good things about being a veteran is that is a leg up in the world of archaeology, especially with like federal jobs. That's an automatic boost to get you ahead of the game in federal jobs. So use it. I've always been very hesitant about using a veteran's discount or being like, hey, I'm a veteran, thank me. But in federal jobs, use it.
Yeah. So
it is definitely something that will benefit you. So if you're considering going into archaeology, federal jobs is where it's at. I think like 88% of archaeology is CRM. 88% of archaeological employment is CRM, and a lot of that's in the federal sector. So, man, be a loud veteran.
Yeah, that's good advice. And I don't mean to take from you, but I would also add to that statement, like when I was a younger person before that job, I would say, like, I always just assumed veterans, like, they get priority because, like, they quote served the country or yada yada. But then, like, and it was out of respect. But like after working, like having them work for me, Like, they're the most hardworking people I've ever, like, they would finish something so quick that I had nothing left to give them. And I was like, bro, just like watch Netflix. Like, I don't know what to tell you. And like, I see why veterans get priority a lot in jobs like that. Unfortunately, they're not treated as great as we'd like them to be in other areas, but I could see why, like, I would always pick a veteran over someone else at this point, I think.
Anything else I'd want to tell the world about archaeology is, I'm involved in a lot of public outreach with New South, our parent company at the VCP. I think it's super important if people know about archaeology. I think it's more involved in every day than people think it is. I think a lot of people don't even know what archaeology really is and how much it drives industrialization in the modern world. So anytime I can get a chance to show people archaeology, its usefulness, and why you shouldn't just kind of shrug it off and be like, hey, I'm going to take this cool arrowhead from this random spot, I like to jump on that. And even to get to distill it a little bit more, anthropology is the more important piece of it.
Awesome.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Thank you for chatting with us. We ask all our guests this. So do you have any like books, lit articles, blogs, Discord channels that you would recommend for folks who are interested in kind of historic archaeology or veteran archaeology, stuff like that?
So Method and Theory in Historical Archaeology by Stan South is it's a little bit of a wordy read, but it's worth it. I would check it out. But other than that, maybe not literature, you'd be surprised at how many volunteer archaeology projects are going on around you. So if you're truly interested in it, seek out your county's archaeological society, and they're probably hosting a dig soon, and you'll get to go out there and do stuff.
That's really good advice. I would also second that too. I don't think anyone's really said that before on this podcast, is like your local chapters are how you get in the door. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Avocational archaeology is a huge part. Volunteers make up so much of the work archaeology does.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing we have to ask you, so because this is a life in ruins, if you were like given the opportunity to do this all over, would you choose still to live a life in ruins?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think I was meant to be anywhere else. It was a rough journey. Probably got yelled at more than I should have if I was a little bit more responsible, but I would never change it.
Good. I like that answer, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us.
Absolutely.
This is the part of the show where we tell you to buy our stuff, rate and review.
Yeah, rate and review the podcast. Like, you guys know what to do. Just rate and review the podcast. Someone actually did this week. Thank you. We will
send you a sticker.
Send that sticker. Yep, that's it for us. Be sure to rate and review the podcast. Follow us on our socials. Shoot us an email, liferuinspodcast@gmail.com. And we're out.
Thanks for listening to a Life in Ruins podcast.
You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at A Life in Ruins Podcast, and you can also email us at alifeinruinspodcast@gmail.com.
And remember, make sure to bring your archaeologists in from the cold and feed them beer.
Connor, do you have a joke?
Oh, yeah. I'm secretly converting to Norse paganism.
Oh, yeah?
Shh. I'm trying to keep it low-key.
God damn it.
That's good.
I hate how appropriate it was.
And with that, we are out for sure.
Out.
This episode was produced by Chris Webster from his RV traveling the United States, Tristan Boyle in Scotland, DigTech LLC, Culturo Media, and the Archaeology Podcast Network, and was edited by Chris Webster.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.
Is your vehicle stopping like it should? Does it squeal or grind when you brake? Don't miss out on summer brake deals at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.